In this video, we shall learn about how to use e-invoicing APIs with the help of Postman. So, from our team, you must have received this Excel file that contains the documentation of e-invoicing APIs, as well as in another file, you must have received this e-invoice Postman collection. So now I will tell you that how to interpret this e-invoicing documentation and how the things work in e-invoicing with the help of APIs. So first of all, let's refer to this documentation. Now this Excel file or this documentation contains different sections, that is attributes, validations, master codes, URL, headers, body sample and JSON. So at step number one, you have to create the JSON in your software. Now this is the sample format of the JSON. You have to create the JSON exactly as per this particular format. You can see there are different tags here, that is document number, document date, and buyer details are there. And under the buyer details, that is the buyer detail is the parent tag, and in the child tag you have legal name, trade name, place of supply, etc. Similarly, you have item detail as the parent tag, and you have a child tag containing serial number, product description, quantity, price, accessible value, GST rate, IGST amount, etc. And at the end, you can see the total value details of the invoice. So at the end, the government asks you the final accessible value of the invoice, final CGST, SGST value of the invoice, and the discount amount as well. Now, how to prepare this particular JSON file. Now we have to take the help of this particular section, attributes. Now this attributes contains the details of all the tags. That is, suppose just have a look that all these blue color highlighted rows, these are the parent tags. The seller details you see, this is highlighted in blue color, so it is a parent tag. Now under this parent tag, you can find there are child tags like GST and legal name, trade name. So again, if you come to this sample JSON file, you see this is the supplier detail, this is the parent tag, this is the seller detail or the supplier detail, this is the parent tag, and all these are the child tag, the GSTN, the legal name, the GSTN, the legal name, all these are child tag. And here's the name of the tag, that is GSTN, legal name, trade name, that is the spelling that is going to be used in the JSON file. And along with it, we have also mentioned the width of the data, that is whether it is going to be a string or whether it is going to be a number, along with the length of the string, that it should only contain 15 characters. This pin code should contain only 6 characters. Apart from that, here's the data format. So where it is mentioned, specifically mentioned the format of the data, there you have to use only that particular data only. For instance, in the transaction category, you have to mention whether your invoice is B2B or SEZ with payment of tax. SEZWP means SEZ with payment of tax. SEZWOP means SEZ without payment of tax. EXPWP means export with payment of tax. EXPWOP means export without payment of tax, and DEXP means deemed export. Similarly, IGST on intra, yes or no. So the value will be Y or N. Similarly, like whether the document type is invoice or debit note or credit note. So the value will contain either INV or CRN or DBN. So you have to refer this data format, that in which format you have to uh, like uh, uh, fill up the value of the JSON file. Now you see like there is a state code also. Now the state for the state code, and you have to refer the separate sheet, that is refer state master. So here are the master codes. So you have to take the reference of the data format in order to know that whether the data has to be filled in a particular code format or not. And this is the sample data format. Last comes this field, this column GNH, that is whether this field is mandatory or what is the cardinality. Now what does this mean? So you see that this blue color highlighted row, that is transaction detail, here it is written mandatory. That means your JSON file should contain this particular parent tag, that is transaction detail. And under the transaction detail you have child tags, and this child tag is mandatory, and all the other these child tags are optional. That is, even if you don't mention anything in the child tag, you will not receive any error. And what is the meaning of cardinality? The cardinality, here the cardinality is mentioned as 1 to 1. That is, minimum occurrence of this tag should be 1. That at least in a JSON file it should occur one time, and the maximum occurrence is also 1. It cannot repeat. It can This particular tag in the JSON file cannot be more than 1. Similarly, let's come to some more tags. That is, you see dispatch details. Now, dispatch detail again is a parent tag because it is highlighted in the blue color, and this tag is optional. That is, even if you don't mention this optional, then even if you don't mention this in the your JSON file, then it will not then you will not receive any error. And that is why the cardinality is mentioned as 0 to 1. That is, minimum occurrence 0, that it can occur 0 times, and maximum occurrence is 1. One more thing I would like to add: what does this dispatch details mean? This dispatch details means the place from where the goods are being dispatched. Suppose if a company is having three factories in a state in a different location, or two go downs in different location, or there might be three branches in different location, then the dispatch details will contain the details, the address, the pin code of the particular factory from where the goods are being dispatched, and the seller details. That is, who is selling who which person is selling the good. This will contain the details of the principal place of registration, as you have registered in the GST systems. So suppose if a company has registered a particular place in the GST system as a principal place of business, so all these values will be filled with the principal place of business details. And but the company has additional place of business, that is go down, branches, or different factories or shops, then then whenever the good is sold from a particular factory, then the address then the this dispatch details will contain the address of that particular location from where the goods are being dispatched. Now, again, coming to the cardinality, let's have a look at this particular tag, item detail. Now, item detail is again a parent tag, that is, for a minimum time it should occur at least once, and the maximum occurs in n times. So let's say if you have 100 items, then this particular tag can appear 100 times. So that is why it is mentioned as 1 to n. And this particular tag is mandatory, and the child tags, which child tags are mandatory and which child tags are optional, it is also mentioned against each and every tag. Now, coming to batch detail. Now, this is the most common question that is we get from the user. Now, this batch detail is the sub tag of item details. So item detail is the parent tag, and again in the item detail you can create a child tag, that is batch details. And under the batch detail, these again there are three tags in it, and after this three tags again 51, this barcode, the quantity, this will again get continued with the item details as well. So batch detail is purely an optional in nature, and if your industry and if you are not if you don't want to mention the batch detail, then it is purely optional in nature, so you can skip this detail. Batch detail is this, you can skip this batch details. Now let's again have a look at the sample JSON, that how the batch details is mentioned. Suppose if anybody wants to mention, you see item detail. Item detail is the parent tag, and all these are the child tags. Or let's say item detail is the grandfather, the serial number, these are all father, and again the batch detail. is also a father, but the batch detail also has its child, that is batch name, expiry date, warranty date, right? So the point is, it is purely optional in nature. So if you want to remove this batch detail, you can again remove this batch detail, but the other detail will be mentioned in the item details only. Now, after understanding this attribute sheet, let's come to the master codes. Now, sometimes, suppose if you are exporting some good to a particular country, then you have to refer this particular code. You have to fill the JSON file with this code. Again, suppose for instance, if you want to mention the state of the buyer, then you will not write Chandigarh. Instead, you will write 4 or 04. Similarly, in the case of units also, suppose if you want to mention bags in your item description, then you will not write bags, you will write bag. So this you have to refer, this master codes you have to refer. Now, after referring to the master codes, there are certain validations that you have to consider while developing the invoice application. So you just refer to this particular sheet, invoice validation, that contains all the validations that are required to be there. Now let me discuss the two to three important validations, so that you can have an idea. So see, suppose in the case of if you are doing export, then in the case of GST number, you have to write as URP, and the state code should be mentioned as 96, and the pin code should be mentioned as 6 times 9, and the place of supply should be mentioned as 96. So similarly, you have to go through this validation in order so that your e-invoicing application should be compatible with the requirements of the government. Now coming to the headers part, URLs and headers. Now this is the URL where you have to this is the URL where we have exposed our invoicing APIs. You have to call this URL and post this invoice by calling this particular URL. Now this is the method, that is post. These are the header details, that is GST number, the customer name, the branch ID, the ERP ID. So these are purely I've already mentioned whether these are mandatory or not. So these are purely optional in nature. This is the username, that is the API username, and the password that is provided by the government. This is the customer ID, API ID, secret key, and the API. All these things are provided by my myGSTcafe team. So now let's take up a demonstration of all these things. So for demonstration, I would request you to create an account in this particular website, postman.com. Now the purpose of this website is that it helps to test your APIs. So you can just create your account by clicking on sign up for free, and after creating your account, you will receive you will see the website like this. You will see the page like this. Now under the you just navigate to the workspace section. Now in the workspace section, what you have to do, click on import. Now browse that file, that the postman collection that we have shared with you. Now let's say this is the postman collection that we have shared with you. You just have to select this particular file and click on open. Now as soon as you will click on open button, this particular you will see this particular section here. You will see a menu of e-invoice, and you will see this particular menus also, post generated invoice or get invoice, right? So when you will click on post generated e-invoice, here you will get the details of the API. We have already, so in that postman collection that we have shared with you, we have already created some test credentials where you can check that how the things are working. So you see, in the case, the method we have defined as post, because in the documentation itself we have mentioned the method as post. So the this has been mentioned as post. Here we have mentioned the URL, the same URL that we have mentioned in the documentation. So we have mentioned the URL. Now in the header section, we have filled some test credentials. So you can take whenever you will create a sandbox environment for your company, so you have to fill the GST number of your sandbox environment. Similarly, the customer name, the branch name, and the username, so all these things you have to take a reference from there. Only thing is that this GST number you have to fill, the GST number that has to be filled should be of your client. That is the sandbox GST number, and exam in the same way the username and the password also. Here you have to mention the username and password of your client or of sandbox environment. So I've already filled all these things, right? Now this is the body. What is the body? This is the same file, JSON file that I have just showed you. So already for the demonstration purpose, we have created an Excel file, right? So this is the same Excel file that I have shown you here, the same JSON file that I have showed you here. This is the same JSON file, right? Now for the demonstration purpose, what I'm doing, I'm just changing the invoice number. The invoice number is 105. Let me change it to 1015, right? So the document number is 10155. Now you will give an option to your user in your ERP application or your billing application to generate invoice. So now as soon as you will click on generate invoice, you will receive certain response. Now for the demonstration purpose, I am clicking on send button, that is I am requesting the government to generate an invoice. Now as soon as I click on this particular button, send button. Now this what this application is doing, this application is posting this JSON file to the government server, and in response it will receive certain message. Now this is the message that we have received, that is the status code as one, response data, this is the acknowledgement number, this is the acknowledgement date, this is the IRN number that has to be printed in the invoice, this is the signed invoice, and you will also get the signed QR code string as well. This is the signed QR code string as well. So all these responses that you receive from the government, you have to save it in your database, and this particular QR code string has to be converted to the image format. So we have certain APIs for that, wherein you can use those APIs to convert this particular string to the PNG, JPG, or BMP format. Apart from that, we can also share a DLL with you. You can use that DLL to convert this JSON string to the image format. Now, all these image that you will convert, that has to be printed. This image, this is the QR code event that has to be printed on the invoice, and similarly, all these IRN number, the acknowledgement number, and the acknowledgement date, you have to customize your invoice format to contain all these things. So that is all about the e-invoicing API demos. Similarly, we have also in the Postman collection, we have also given you the other APIs, that is get invoice details by document number, or you we have also given the cancel iron APIs as well. So you can test all these type of APIs with the Postman, so you will have a better idea that how the e-invoicing APIs are working. For any help, you can mail us at sales at mygstcafe.com, or fintech at mygstcafe.com. Thank you.